Hi. I love the intro so much I wanted to play it twice. Hi, guys. Welcome to another well-executed episode of History of a Haunting. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Laura.
And we have two very special guests with us on this mini episode. My new friends, and now Laura's new friends, Donna and Connie. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. In this episode, we are actually going to be talking about the recap of the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum investigation that myself, Chris, Audra, Donna, Connie, Zach, Jody, a bunch of us met, and we did an overnight investigation on Saturday, August 28th at one of the most infamously haunted locations in the world, I think. So we did cover Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in a previous episode. It was actually episode number 3. So for those of you who have not listened to it in a while, brief summary. It was built in, and ladies, correct me if I get any of the dates and particulars wrong, but they started building it in 1858, right? And then they had to stop because of the Civil War.
Yes.
Okay. And then it was open to accept patients in 1864. Is that correct? Because it was.
I think you're pretty close, if not.
Okay. Because for a time, they did also have Confederate and Union soldiers there that got wounded in the war. So they were kind of using it as a hospital as well. Over time, it was meant to house 250 patients. One of my favorite facts about Trans Allegheny is that it is the second largest hand-cut stone masonry building in the entire world, second to the Kremlin in Russia. So I thought that was really cool. It is a massive building, you guys. It is. And the pictures you see and the pictures that I'm going to show, like, this is it. This doesn't even do any kind of justice to this building. It's got, like, half of the sides are cut off on this picture. It just extends out so long, and it's one of 13 buildings on a property that was 666 acres. So they weren't starting out great. So it was meant to house 250 patients, each in their own private room. By the time it was all said and done, when it closed in 1994, it was about 2,500 patients. As with everything, they were, the staff they were understaffed. They had overcapacity, they were underfunded, and we all know those recipe ingredients. Things are going to get really, really bad. There were a number of rapes, number of murders, number of suicides. Unfortunately, in 1994, it was forced to close its doors simply because the conditions were absolutely terrible. Ice pick lobotomies were performed here, electroshock therapy, hydrotherapy, any number of treatments that they were kind of experimenting with in the field of mental health were done here at Trans Allegheny long before they had finally, come up with Thorazine and all of the different medications that now treat these very same mental illnesses. So as a result, it is an exceptionally haunted building, and I had no idea. I mean, I covered it. I did my part on it, but it's a very different feeling when you walk in the doors and you just feel like that place is crowded with people. And everywhere you go, you don't feel alone anywhere, right, ladies?
No, you don't. You don't.
It's absolutely nuts. It's absolutely nuts. So there is a number of infamous rooms. I did talk about it on our Facebook Live about a week before Chris and Audra and I drove to Weston. There is Lily's room. Lily is believed to be a child of about 9 years old. Her origin story is, not confirmed, but they do believe she was either born to one of the nurses there at Trans Allegheny, or her mother was sent there while she was pregnant with her after her husband died in the Civil War. They believe that she died of pneumonia or some illness like that. So Lily has her own room. I did show that picture. green room. Everybody brings toys for her. They bring candy. They bring musical instruments. It's on the first floor, and we will talk about our experiences in that room. The next most infamous room is the bedpost murder room, where a mentally challenged individual by the name of Dean Matheny was housed in that room with two criminally insane individuals who strangled Dean, and they would hang him. They hung a bed sheet up over the pipes in the room, and they would strangle him over and over and over again. When that didn't kill him, they did lay him down on the ground. They put the metal bedpost on his skull, and they jumped on the bed until his skull was crushed. Laura, I know you've heard that 1,000 times. You hate it every single time.
Every time it's so gross. It's hard to hear every single time. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah. So we did go to that room, and Laura, if you want to kind of maybe shift to one side, this is the background that Laura currently has. This is Dean's bedroom. So I took this photograph when we were there. We did spend about 20, 30 minutes in his room, and Connie and Donna and Chris and Audra, all of our group, our tour guide Jess, Zach and his dad. We just had Jody. We had a group there were 10 of us. We had the best time. It was a really, really wonderful group of folks. And everybody worked together. In fact, the tour guide said that we were one of the best groups that she had had, because we were working together and we were like doing investigations together, as opposed to, oh, I don't want to go in that room because people are in there, or I don't want to. We all stuck together as we went through the floors. So it was we had a great time in Dean's room. So to that end, that's kind of, a brief recap of the history and the hauntings of Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. So before we get into the actual investigation, I definitely want to introduce everybody and get to know Donna and Connie. So ladies, how did you individually and then together, how did you guys get into the paranormal field and paranormal investigations? How did you find yourselves forming an actual paranormal investigation group?
Well, for me, I've always been interested in it. Just basically on this scientific side, energy never dies. It always moves on to something else.
Right.
So in theory, the energy of a human body has to go somewhere. So that always kind of was in me from the time I was in 8th grade when I heard that from my science teacher.
That's wonderful.
I really didn't talk about it to many people because everybody just kind of thought it was taboo. Till her and I started working together many years ago, and kind of opened up on what we liked and believed in, and we started doing some investigations together in Savannah, Georgia.
See, Laura?
Yeah. Savannah's supposed to be...
Savannah's it's a good place to start, right?
Mm-hmm. Carrie and I are planning a trip out there, I think, for maybe February.
Yeah.
If we can pull it off.
Yeah. And Connie, how about you? What got you interested in the paranormal?
Well, of course, early 2000s, I started watching Ghost Adventures. Got to see more. I'd always believed in it. I knew there was something out there.
Yeah.
So I started getting into it. I went to Appomattox Courthouse with my kids.
Oh.
And we had an experience at Appomattox Courthouse in the old jail that is on the site. And from then on, I was hooked.
Wow.
And then when, like Donna said, when we were working together, we just, I don't even remember how it come up that we were both into the same thing. And we've been going ever since, and here we are.
That's wonderful.
Having a blast.
That's wonderful. And those shows, those paranormal reality shows, same thing. Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, Destination Fear, all of them. They really, especially the early ones. The Ghost Hunters, I think, was one of the first. They really changed the face of this field. And they got a lot more people interested in it. That's when I was like, I've always believed in the paranormal since I was a little kid. But watching Ghost Hunters, I remember sitting there and thinking, that is exactly what I want to learn how to do. That is exactly what I want to learn. But it took almost 15, 16 years before I actually was able to. But yeah, I think a lot of us have that same story where it all started when I started watching these amazing shows on TV. So tell us a little bit about your organization, your paranormal investigation group. What is their name? Where do you go? Do you do public locations? Do you do private homes? Tell us a little bit about your paranormal group.
Well, we started out shortly after Savannah doing an investigation of the Sorrel Weed House. We kind of want to start a business with this, maybe doing almost like a tour guide deal where we set up your destination, we take you there, we give you the equipment, we show you how to use it. Unfortunately, due to COVID, it really halted some stuff. So right now we're just really doing some investigations on our own, mostly public places. We haven't gotten into private homes yet, except for our very own, because both of our homes are haunted. But we would like to take it to the next level and kind of share it with people that have that interest but don't know where to start.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's wonderful. That's actually how I got started. About a month or two after my friend Archie and I started the podcast, I had taken my cousin down to the Phelps Dodge Hospital in Ajo. And I know that we had talked to you guys about that when we were at Trans Allegheny a little bit. But Chris and Audra and their partners, Tony and Cherie, they were doing that at Phelps Dodge Hospital. And it was a 2-hour tour. They gave us the equipment. They showed us the hot spots, told us the history of the hospital, and then they just let us go and investigate on our own. If we had any questions, they were there to point us in the right direction and things like that. And that's how I got started in it. That's how I met Chris and Audra and Tony and Cherie, because they were doing that. And they did such a phenomenal job. And there's so many different ways that can go, right? So when we did Trans Allegheny, we had Jess was our tour guide, but she kind of just showed us the floors and told us the hot spots and things like that. And then she left us to our own devices. And then if we wanted her to come with us, she did. So I tend to work better. I tend to like it better if I can go poke around and just kind of check it out on my own. There are some groups that were doing paranormal tours of Phelps Dodge where the guide wanted them to all stay together, which I completely understand for safety reasons or whatever her reasons were. But I also think that, a group of 20 people milling around and they're having to stay together and be in the same rooms, that can kind of contaminate evidence, because there's just, people are going to talk, they're going to whisper, they're going to, you know what I mean? And so you might mistake an EVP for somebody in the back of the room who was like, oh, did you hear that? I heard that too. So I love that. I love that you girls are doing that. And I sincerely hope that you guys are able to find a location that is haunted and do that and bring that kind of excitement and that knowledge to the same folks that have done it for us. So I think that's wonderful. And when you do get that, let me know, and Laura and I will absolutely be sure to promote that here on History of a Haunting as well. So I'm so excited.
Right, thanks.
All right. So let's start talking a little bit about the investigation. So Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum has a number of tours. They have daytime tours. They have historic tours. They have public 2 or 3 hour ghost haunts of the main building. And then it was the 3 back buildings. Ladies, is it medical, forensic, and the geriatric building? Is that what the names of them are? I know I asked you this that night and I can't remember. That's what they are?
That's what it was.
Okay. So they have a bunch of different tours, and you can certainly go to their website and see which one that you'd like to do. The one that we did was the public 8-hour overnight investigation, and we had to be there by 8:30. We checked in, and it was a maximum of 40 people. And at the time when Chris and Audra and I booked it, we were like, ooh, 40 people, that's kind of a lot. But the way that they did it was really, really phenomenal. So they kind of branched everybody off into groups of 10, and then every group of 10 had their own tour guide. So when we got there and checked in, everybody was assigned a packet, and in their packet was their certificate of committal, of which I got cerebral softening. And I think, Donna, didn't you got bad whiskey as a reason for your being committed?
Yes.
Connie, what was yours?
Yes.
Mine was time of life.
Oh, she was having, time of life. I don't know if that means you were having the time of your life or you had just gotten to a point.
I think it's postmenopausal.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah, that you could really be committed for the most ridiculous stuff. Um,
That's good that they
The
broke you guys
last
up,
time
though,
we
'cause I
went,
remember you.
what did you have last time?
You got what?
both of us had some issues with masturbation the last investigation.
That's awesome.
Laura, what were you going to say?
Oh, it's cool that they broke you guys up because I remember you saying that you were worried about how there being like 40 people kind of moving in mass and trying to investigate anything would have
Right.
been impossible.
Right,
So
exactly.
at least they understand that, so they're breaking you guys up into smaller groups. That's cool.
Yeah, it was really brilliant. So there are 4 floors to Trans Allegheny. We had 4 groups of 10. So the way they did it is every group got their own tour guide, and ours was the lovely Jess. She was wonderful and amazing. I cannot say enough kind things about her, and I highly recommend. You can recommend a tour guide when you go to Trans Allegheny. So I definitely recommend everybody ask for Jess because she was really great. She's worked there for 7 years. She really knows her stuff, and she really knows the entities in that building, and they know her. So it kind of it added an even better element to our investigations, I think. But the way they did it was they split everybody up into a group of 10, and then you went off with your tour guide. We were each assigned a floor that we would start on. So from, was it 9 to 11, you got 2 hours on every floor. And she took us around and she was like, this is Lily's room. This is what this ward used to be. This is the Civil War area. There's an entity down here. His name is Sarge on the first floor. So then after 2 hours, then we would go in order. So then at the next floor we did was floor 2 for 2 hours. And everybody rotated. So there was never more than 10 people on one floor. And how many square feet is one floor, did she say? Was it 33,000 square feet per floor?
Well, I know the total as far as the building, the layout is over 8 acres. 8 acres of building. you're
Of
walking
building.
Oh wow,
in. Of building.
even bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah, oh yeah. Absolutely massive. And I think she said each floor was 33,000 square feet. So you have this main lobby area. And Laura, let's play Russian roulette with the pictures and see if I bring the right one up.
It's always the best.
Yes. Okay, so here is the main lobby area. So when you're looking at the building, there's that center section and it's got that big clock tower at the top. That's this section of the building. And then the wards all branch off from either side of this. And all of the floors look similarly to this. There's always this center area on all of the floors. And then the wards branch off on either side. We had access to pretty much the entire building except for the first floor that was lobotomy recovery. Was that what it was?
That and criminally insane intake.
Yes. So the coolest spots on the first floor we didn't have access to. But the reason we didn't have access to it, and they tell you this right when you get there and they're giving you kind of like the lay of the land and the rules of the tours, they have 2 working bathrooms in the entire building and they are on this main lobby floor. They're clearly marked. They're like, these are the only 2 working bathrooms. Please do not use the bathrooms in the rest of the building on any floor, because then we have to call maintenance and they have to fix it, and because there's no working plumbing except for in those 2 bathrooms. But apparently people don't listen to that, and they were using the bathrooms in that one section on the first floor and clogging up the toilets and doing all of this, and maintenance was starting to get really pissed off. So they just were like, all right, well, people can't follow the rules, and now nobody can go in there because people can't quit.
That sucks.
Because of that, we were so irritated. We were all so irritated.
Somebody always ruins it for everybody else.
1,000%. My God. So that's kind of how that went. I think the first place that I went after our tour on the first floor was Lily's room. And I was in there with Jody and her friend. And ladies, I cannot remember her friend's name. What was that? Do you know?
Lisa.
Lisa. Okay. Where did you guys go first on the first floor?
First 9.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's an amazing building. And the first floor part of it is the oldest part of it. So there is like a Civil War section. And in that section, there is an entity by the name of Sarge that wanders around. There's a shadow figure that kind of like lurks around this one particular area. So I believe it was Zach and his dad caught a photograph of a shadow figure down there. When I had gone down there, after I was in Lily's room, I had gone in with Chris and Audra to that section where the kitchen is in the hospital. And Laura, they have these in this kitchen. This old soda fountain that looks like it's from 1950s. And it's not working. It's not plugged in. The lines are like filled with mold. There's cobwebs all over it. There's dust everywhere. There's dust in the lines. It isn't working. But as I'm walking past it and I'm filming and I'm like, you can hear in my voice in the video, hi, my name is Carrie. And like, you could hear like it goes up like the pitch goes up a little higher because it just felt so active in there. Like there was something in there watching me, and I'm like, I was there by myself. I'm like, they don't want me in here. You just had that vibe. So as I'm walking through and I'm filming, and I was like, did you used to work in the kitchen? Did you used to help feed the patients? Did you, I'm asking questions. Mm-hmm. I hear a glug. And that's the only way I can describe it. Is like a
drain clearing or something?
Yes.
Water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like a soda fountain when it's kind of like air's coming out of the pipes and like or out of the tubes. And I spun around, you guys, so fucking fast. I was like, oh God. And I'm looking around and I'm like, Carrie, you have to go look at this soda fountain. Like, you have to go check this out. And in my brain is like, move your feet. And I'm standing there and I'm like, I can't scream for Chris and Audra because they're like down the hall, around the corner, and like in another intricately part of the hospital. So I go and I check it out. And as I'm standing there, I hear this more faint glug. And I'm like, what the hell? And so I'm looking around. Well, come to find out what I thought was a glug. The first floor was leaking. And they had buckets that were catching the water. And they had one of the buckets was in a janitor's closet. So that sound was insulated and it made it louder. And when the water... Yes. And when the water dripped in it, it sounded like it came from this fucking soda fountain. But I'm like, I've got to figure out what this is because I just can't. And so then Chris and Audra came back through and I'm like, can you confirm this for me? Because I don't think this is haunted. But where is this noise coming from? So they were able to confirm that, yeah, it was that. But that's kind of like what a paranormal investigator does. Is we don't like go into a building and we're like, it's haunted, and we're going to get all the evidence and it's haunted. We want to go in and we want to debunk. We want to come up with rational explanations for activity. If we can't, and we all had a lot of moments where we could not explain it. It's unexplained. It's just, you know what I mean? We just couldn't explain it. So did you guys go into Lily's room? Was it you guys that Chris said were in Lily's room with the marble?
With the balls.
We were in there with the balls and playing with her.
Okay, so tell that story. Because that was I wasn't there for this one, but Chris was.
So evidently the spirits were not wanting me to record at all with my GoPro. Starting off in the first night, we had everything set up. We were sitting there quietly. The camera would turn off and then turn right back on and then turn off. Over and over again. We're not touching it, it's sitting in front of us. So we did hear, and just out of respect for the family, she did hear a name in that room first. And she said, "Did you hear that?" I heard something, but I was kind of paying attention to what was in front of me and my camera shutting on and off.
Right.
And then together we heard that same name again, with just our ears, no equipment. After speaking with Jessica, like I said, I don't want to say the name out loud, but there was a former employee, and without going into too many details, that was the anniversary date of his death. We heard his name 2 times in that room, and one more time an SD session later on.
Oh, wow.
So we went down. We went down into Sarge's area, didn't get anything there, and then we went into Lily's room. I set up the camera, had it sitting on the tripod, turned it on, gave her some candy, told her that I had a granddaughter that, I love to play with, and we play ball all the time, and asked her to play ball with me. I rolled the ball. It went straight to the corner, got almost all the way to the wall, and would roll back and forth about a span of 2 feet, back and forth, and kind of slow down and pick back up. Thought, well, that was kind of strange, so I'm going to try to redo that again.
Right.
And every time I roll that ball, it would take a different direction. It finally would roll and then go to the center of the room and circle all her toys that were sitting in the middle. This large
Stop!
circle. So yes. I'm sitting there going, I've got this recorded. I was so excited.
Oh, man.
Well, I went over to the floor where I saw the ball rolling back and forth for a good 30, 40 seconds. I have my hands, I'm down on my hands and knees, taking my hands over the floor to see if there's a dip there.
Right.
Not finding anything.
Yeah.
I'm taking the ball, sitting it there. It's not rolling back and forth. I'm like, I've got this on camera. This is wonderful. So we met up with Chris afterwards. I said, Chris, come in here with me. See if you can find anything with this floor, why it would cause this ball to roll back and forth in a straight line. And he could not find a reason either it would do that or even continue going in a circle into the center. Checking my camera, nothing. And all my videos for the rest of the night are all muted except for 3 seconds of me saying, I just got sick on my stomach.
Oh, and that was on the 3rd floor or second floor? Is that where the boys' ward was? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
God.
For whatever reason, my camera, brand new camera, a charged battery. I tested the camera before we went at a racetrack. It ran fine, didn't kick off, but the whole night it was on and off or muted.
Yeah, see, and with like the ball rolling back and forth, like there's no air conditioning in this entire building, Laura. So it wouldn't have been
so
like...
it's not the wind or...
It's not the wind. There were no windows open in her room. So it wouldn't have been like, the rush of AC air coming into the room to blow the ball across. Because it's not a carpeted floor.
Well, she's saying they checked for leveling, so it wasn't like,
Yeah.
slanted or, heading down towards like a drain in the middle of the room as they have like in some,
Right. And some of the rooms
like that.
did have that, but not in Lily's room. That is so crazy. Yeah, that's what Chris had said. He was
It's
like,
a good story.
he's like, Carrie, he was like, he's like, I about freaked out when I walked into that room and saw that ball rolling across the floor. I was like, oh God. And Chris doesn't carry any equipment with him. Chris is very much, he has a flashlight and that's it. Chris relies mostly on his clairvoyant abilities. Audra and I are the ones that like, pack all the equipment around and, whatever. But so he wasn't recording or doing anything like that to have been able to have caught it either, unfortunately. When Jody and Lisa and I were in there, it was just the three of us, and it was right after Jess had given us the tour and sent us on our way, and I like beeline to Lily's room because that was the first place I wanted to see. So we get in there. We didn't have a lot of activity, and that's what Jess had said about Lily, is that she's very shy, so don't like give her about 15, 20 minutes. So we were in there for well over half an hour. Really no activity. I did play Cinderella's A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes. I played that on my phone and, hoping to kind of entice her. And Jess was like, she loves Disney music. That was a great idea. So we didn't really have anything happen until we heard footsteps walking back and forth outside the door of Lily's room. And we thought it was like some of the other group, but it was hard-soled shoes. So I'm like, what is, I'm like, hey, is one of the tour group out there? You want to come in or whatever? And nobody answered, but we heard the footsteps walk away and we're like, so I got up and I'm like, I'm going to go see who that was, because I could hear voices and I'm like, it sounds like somebody's at the far end of the hall. So I went and looked and it was Chris and Audra. But they were way, almost by like that door we went through from the main lobby. They were way down at the end of the hall. And it is echoey. It is a stone building. It is echoey. So we could hear them. But these footsteps were real clear. Really clear. So it wasn't Chris and Audra. There was nobody else out in that hallway. So I go back in and I'm like, either it's coming from upstairs or that's unexplainable. Because I don't think anybody that was in our group had hard-soled shoes on. I mean, I didn't spend a whole lot of time looking at people's feet, but most people who are going on these tours know to wear like tennis shoes, sneakers, quiet shoes,
Yeah. And hard-soled shoes when you're on your feet for 8 hours is not going to be fun.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So that was really the only activity that we got in and around Lily's room. I did capture, she has little pianos, those little kid pianos, Laura, that you children have. Mm-hmm. But people have given her a few of them. So when I was reviewing my AVP recordings, I'm listening to the part where the song is playing. And in it, there is a very clear, like, bing bong in the song. And I'm like, that's out of place. So I listened again and again and again. And then I played the actual song again. And that bing bong is not in the song, but it's on my EVP recorder. And it sounds like it's coming from a child's piano. But
like she's playing along like kids will when they hear music on those little pianos, right?
But yeah, exactly. But we didn't hear it.
It was just on the EVP.
It was just on the EVP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's that's kind of cool though. I mean, that's very kid-like. That's what Zane used to do with his little piano or drums.
Or very Hunt and Pecky, just kind of like, right? Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. That's really cool.
Yeah. So we had a good time. That was the activity on the first floor. Now the second floor was the children's ward on one side, or was it all? Was it all children's ward, or was it?
I think it was children and then women's.
Oh yes,
the violent women was upstairs.
Was
on
3,
the 3rd floor.
Right?
So
yeah. I
think it was children on one side, women and men on the other.
Like a general population, women and men. There was, because then the upper. Okay. Didn't
Then
really
like the criminally insane and stuff are up on top.
right. Yeah. I didn't really experience anything on the second floor. We did have a group investigation in a bathroom at the end of the hall of the boys' ward, where a spirit named Benjamin is known to hang out. So we were like, okay. So we went in there. The only thing that I saw in the moment, I was filming Chris. So Chris is a former police officer, and people aren't entirely sure what Ben's intentions are, just kind of skulking around a bathroom on the boys' ward. So he went in there acting like a cop. And the only thing that this Ben apparently has a real foul mouth and will cuss you out real quick, doesn't care. So we went down there as a group to kind of try and get this guy to interact with us. And the only thing that I captured was on my phone, that's what I was using to film, was a mist that kept hanging around Chris. And then when Chris said, I don't want you to be that close to me, it disappeared. And that was the only thing that I really had happen to me, or any activity that I had happen on the second floor. But you girls had a bit of a different experience in the suicide bathroom, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
What was that? Tell us about that. Well, explain to everybody first what the suicide bathroom was. It sounds it's obvious, but let's tell them, why it got named that.
Right. Nobody wants to talk about this.
Well, it's the murder bathroom. And
was
then
it
the double suicide across the
That's
hall
right.
from it.
There were two bathrooms
Yeah.
that weren't great.
So in the boys' ward, in the bathroom, one of the boys had murdered another boy, and after the boy actually called to his death to the nurses' ward. Unfortunately, nobody noticed him because of the overcrowding. But since then, both of those boys have now become best friends. In the afterlife, we did some communication with the dowsing rods. Have video of it, but no audio on my camera. So we did get a lot of activity. The boys were very, very interested. They would point to every one of us. And I had gotten the idea, they weren't really wanting to answer questions. They were just taking a dowsing rod and pointing to each person. And I said, are you wanting to know everybody's name? Or do you want us to introduce ourselves? So we did.
Great.
He pointed to us, we introduced ourselves, and he would point to the next person in line. And then after that, the communication with the dowsing rods he was very, very talkative, would answer very quickly. Yes.
And it was the one that had killed
the
other one.
Yeah, the
Really?
one that actually, I'm terrible with names. Once I figure out how to get the audio off of my watch, so I can match them up with the video, I will get that taken care of. But after that, I had left the murder bathroom, and we went straight over to the double suicide room, where two young boys both hung themselves with their bed sheets. Most people say it's very, very sad in there. It's just a dark place to be in. Yeah. I had gone in there, walked across the hallway with my camera on. Now, I recorded the whole time with the dowsing rods walking across the hall. It had shut off and turned itself back on. The only thing that you hear is dead silence. There's, 5 of us in the room. You don't hear anybody else in the room. No footsteps, no scuffling of clothing. Somebody had asked me, one of the girls, and I can't think of, it might have been Jody, said, are you okay? As I was walking out of the room. I remember her asking me that, but it's not on the audio. What I do have is me saying, I just got sick on my stomach. And that's the only thing that you can hear on the video. So I'm not sure how it changed from being muted to unmuted in the same video clip.
Right.
But somebody did not recording them.
I agree. I have to agree with that. And in that room too, they were saying that people that go into that room and spend any kind of quality amount of time will get the overwhelming feeling of grief and depression, and people have left that room crying just because these emotions that they weren't feeling when they walked in there, they were tapping into after spending any length of good time in the room. So I think it's really interesting that, one, you started to feel sick to your stomach. Did anybody else feel any physical or emotional? Connie, did you feel anything when you were in there?
I didn't feel anything.
Nothing. Did anybody else say anything
Yeah, and it was
about?
shortly after that. No, nobody had mentioned anything, and if you remember, that was about the same point when I walked out into the hallway. We were getting ready to go back into the main corridor, and I actually had to sit down.
That's right.
Because
I
it felt
do
like my
remember
sugar
that. I do remember that.
And I took a bite. I did take a bite of my Cliff Bar, thinking my sugar has dropped. And by the time I got it in my mouth and like was chewing on it, I was like, I'm starting to feel better. This is definitely not my sugar.
Yeah.
It takes 10, 15 minutes for your sugar to elevate after eating. So there was definitely some weird feelings coming out of that.
Yikes. Kind of weird, right, Laura?
That's kind of weird, yeah.
I'm telling you, I mean, this place was crazy the whole entire night. And did you have any other experiences on the second floor?
I didn't really.
No. Just going into Dean's room, I was wearing the headset for the ghost box. I
Yes.
couldn't hear anything anybody was asking or talking about. All I could hear was basically radio static and whatever words would come through. So I'll let you do the intro into that one. That was quite an interesting room.
That was the other room that I was like, I wanted to see the whole entire place, but Dean's room and Lily's room were the two places that I was like, I'm not leaving this building until I get to see and spend some time in those rooms. So the third floor was where they housed the criminally insane. The seclusion cells were up there. The violent men's ward was there, and the violent women's ward was there. So we had the most activity of the night on the third floor. Would you girls agree?
Oh,
Yeah.
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 So Jess gives us our tour, and we kind of stuck together on this floor. I don't think there was any point where any of us were really separated and kind of went off and did our own thing. So the first place that we went was down the hallway, the ward with the seclusion cells. And at this point in the evening, Jess, they were training a new tour guide. And starting with the third floor, this new tour guide joined us. And what was her name? Jennifer? Was it Jennifer? Connie?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So her name is Jennifer.
Yeah.
Lovely little girl. We really enjoyed our time with her. So she was kind of, being trained by Jess and doing tours and stuff like that. So she joined us. And she was telling us about how Jess was explaining the seclusion cells and how there was one door that was kind of grated that you could like shut and leave the main door open. If they were behaving, they could still see and hear what was going on out in the hall. And if they were acting like fools, then they would shut the soundproof door. So there were two doors that they could shut them in with. So the girl, Jennifer, was telling us about how she had gone into one of these seclusion cells that we were standing in front of. And when she went to leave it, she felt somebody kind of crushing her throat as she went to leave the cell. So we were like, oh God. So she and I decided to go in that very same cell and lock ourselves in it.
Of course you did. Why wouldn't you? That
Why
sounds
would,
great.
I mean, yeah. I would have been like, Laura, come on, let's go in here and let's check this out.
Legitimately.
So she and I go in there. They shut the doors and they're like, all right, we'll be back. And then they go on with the tour. And so she and I are standing in there and we're like, is there anybody in here with us? The usual EVP questions. And I'm like, how are you feeling? She's like, I feel fine. And I'm like, you don't feel like you're being choked? And she's like, no. Mm-mm. And I said, I don't. Do you feel like there's anybody in here? And she's like, not really. And so we kind of stood there for a few minutes. And then I was like, all right, well, do you want to go back and rejoin the group? And she's like, okay. But when I listened back to I had my EVP recorder in my hand the entire time. When I listened back to that part, and I said, I don't really feel like I don't really get the feeling anybody's in here with us. We captured a male voice said, hold on.
Ooh.
I'm like, oh my. If I had heard,
Like,
we'd
hold
heard,
my beer. I'm coming.
hold my beer. I'll be there in a minute. If we had heard that with our own ears, I might have been like, I don't know if I want to hold on for whatever this person or thing is going to show us. Yeah. So then we ended up joining them in Dean's room. So Dean's room, I mean, and again, we all had flashlights. It was pitch black every single place that you went. So we all sit around Dean's room, and I've got my EVP recorder on the footboard of his bed that I thought a cockroach was crawling on, but it turns out it was just a cricket. I did have a moment of wigging out there for a second. But then I was like, oh, it's just a cricket. Never mind. My EMF detector was on the bed, and then Zach's dad put a REM pod on the bed. And then so we're all sitting around the room, and Jess and Jennifer are sitting against the wall. They've got 2 flashlights, so Jess turns the flashlights on. She stands them up, or she gets them ready to go. So the flashlight game, we've talked about it a number of times on the show, guys. It's essentially there's a certain type of flashlight that you can ask the spirits to manipulate by just simply touching the back of it. You kind of untwist them a little bit so that they're just touching the battery on the inside, and the spirits can touch that, and they can turn the light on. And so the flashlight game is a very popular investigative technique that a lot of paranormal groups use to try and communicate and have, they can answer yes or no questions, things of that nature. So she put 2 of those in the middle of the room, and then Donna has a spirit box, one exactly like the one that you and I have, Laura. The little red one looks like a little speaker.
Oh, okay.
It's got an antenna. It's a whole big thing.
Right.
So what we did was we decided to do sensory deprivation, and that's also known as the Estes method. So Laura, have we talked about that before?
No, but when you just turn off everything, basically, except for that, right?
Essentially, yes. So you plug in a pair of soundproof headphones into the spirit box, and one person is listening to it. So the spirit box is scanning radio waves about every quarter of a second. They're scanning radio frequencies. And the idea is that the spirits can manipulate those frequencies to come through in real time so that we hear what they say right then and there, instead of waiting a week or however long before we can review our EVP recordings or our video or audio. So it's called the Estes method because it was developed and created at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. So it's called sensory deprivation or the Estes method. Basically, they put on soundproof headphones, and a lot of times people will put on blindfolds, so they are completely deprived of all of their senses. All they are doing is hearing whatever the spirit box is spitting out, while the rest of the group is communicating with the entity or entities in that particular space. So we all start out before, and Donna was doing this sensory deprivation for us, but before we started doing that, we were just saying, Jess was talking to Dean, and she was like, Dean, if you're in here with us, can you set off one of these things? And so then immediately the REM pod went off. And I think I showed you that section of video, Laura.
You did.
That interaction, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we were so enthralled by all of it. We spent a good almost half an hour in there. And about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes into it, Donna puts on the headphones. She's listening to the spirit box, and she can't hear what we're saying, but she's just throwing out words that she's hearing come through. So at one point, we were hearing things in the hallway, and Chris was seeing shadow figures. So we were like, Dean, is that you? Is that somebody else? And we said, I can't remember, Connie, if we said something like, light up one of the flashlights if you're in the hallway, and so they didn't light up. So we knew that Dean was still in the room with us. And then Donna was saying, I've listened to this audio like 9 times and I still can't remember. Wait or don't. And she was spitting out these words and we're like, wait, what? And at one point we had asked Dean, hey, are you having a good time? And he was like, boy, and Donna spits out boring. And we were like, wow, all right. Did he say scared? Was that one of them?
He said scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had said we put another flashlight by the doorway of Dean's room. And we had said, you know what, Dean, if you want Chris to go out and see what's in the hallway, light up one of the flashlights. And I wasn't specific when I said it, but then the flashlight by the doorway went off. And we were like, oh, okay, so Chris went out into the hall. And he saw a shadow figure at the end of the hallway. He saw one in the room across. And then where was the third one he saw? He saw 3 of them in the room.
No.
Wow.
Well, there was one right there at the door, one down into the hallway, and one a couple doors down.
That's right.
But you did, when that flashlight turned on at the door, it scared Jen, the new investigator, or the tour guide, and she said, oh shit, and jumped. And Donna instantly popped out and said, ha ha.
Yes.
So whatever she heard
awesome.
said, ha ha.
Yeah. Which then we all laughed about because...
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, which then we all laughed at because, I mean, we were having the best time with him. And he was being he was being really interactive. We were getting responses that made sense to the questions that we were asking. And again, Donna couldn't see us. We didn't blindfold her, but she did keep her eyes closed and she couldn't hear us. And then it got really fucking weird. And Dean started, is that when Dean said that he was scared?
Yes.
So, is the theory that those shadow people out there are the ones that hurt him?
Yes. There were 2 of them, James Woods and David Mason. What's known about Dean is he'll come out and interact with you, but when one or both of them show up, he goes away. And we knew this. And so Dean just started getting he wanted Chris to come back into the room. And he had said, was it you, Connie, that asked, is one of them mean? Or is somebody out there that's a mean person? If so, light up a flashlight. Was that you that asked that?
I think that was Jess.
Was it? And immediately the flashlight lit. We were like, uh-oh.
Okay.
And then it got to a point where Dean seemed to disappear and wasn't answering any of our questions or anything like that once we noticed these 3 shadow figures. So Chris came back in the room and Zach's dad was on the one side filming everybody in the room. He saw the shadow figure come in with Chris. And he was hoping he caught it on video. Yes. And then Donna started having some really weird things happen with the spirit box. So, Donna, why don't you...
As soon as you walked into the room, when you're listening to the ghost box, it's in constant static, all over the place, different frequencies, all mashed into one. It's not in unison at all. As soon as Chris walked into the room, the noise, the static was completely unison, just as it was changing through all the channels. And then it started just blowing my eardrums up, just this high pitch. And you could hear me in the audio going, dang it. And I'm ripping off my headset real quick because it's so loud.
Yeah.
People across the room from me could hear over top of my headset because it was so ear piercing.
One of them we did, yeah. At one point she hollered out Jesus and like startled all of us. We weren't expecting, because she was just like saying like normal words, and then at like Jesus, we were like, because she wasn't hollering prior to that, right? Where? She wasn't yelling prior to that, but we did hear that one loud. What was it? Feedback, or was it?
It almost sounded like if you took a microphone and too close to a speaker, just real loud, high pitched noise.
Oh god!
Is what
like feedback. Yeah, it's crazy.
Awful.
Yeah.
It was awful. It was about that point where she started kind of getting a little uncomfortable with keeping the damn headphones on, for one.
I would have done too. Nobody wants to listen to that.
Right. The atmosphere in the room changed almost on a dime. And it just felt different in the room. So at one point, Dean stopped talking. Dean stopped talking to us. He started saying stuff like, was it like no or wait, or he wasn't as interactive. And I'm like, they were asking if one of the black shadows was James Woods, which they call him Big Jim at the asylum. The staff does. And just was like, I'm like, I don't think he wants to talk about this, because she got real quiet. And then, like, except for when the static was blowing up her eardrums and she was, damn, and like ripping the headphones off. But at some point, we all just decided it's probably time to go. We should probably leave here, because we all just felt like, oh, well, party's over. Like something like, you know what I mean? Like, oh shit, the police came and just broke up the party or whatever, because we were all having such a great time. And the mood really changed pretty quickly. But we were in there for a good 25, 30 minutes until we walked out the door. And we all kind of gathered in the hall in a cluster, because there was a shadow figure blocking out a light at the far end of the hallway. Where
I think you told me about this. You had to go that way, right?
We had to go that way to get out. We stood there for, ever, just watching this shadow figure pace back and forth, blocking out this light, because it was in front of a window and the outside light was coming through the window and it was blocking that out. And we just stood there and we're just like, I'm like, we gotta get to that door. And Jess was being real cagey about, she's like, I think I know who that is, and I'll tell you guys when we get off this ward. And we were like, who is it? She's like, I'll tell you when we get off this ward. Like, she was being real cagey about it. And so I thought, who the hell could this possibly be, that she doesn't want to talk about this person in front of this person? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when we got off of that ward, and we went back into the center area, she had told us that it was more than likely Big Jim, who was James Woods, was one of the guys that killed Dean. But she did mention something really interesting. And everything that you hear about that murder, which was so horrific, is they were both in on it. They both thought it was hysterical. They were both criminally insane. They were both whatever. But what the staff has found over time through dozens of investigations, dozens of tours and things like that, was that James Woods, yes, he did help kill Dean, but he was sort of coerced into it by David Mason. So that's what they have discovered through interacting with him and speaking with him. And he does not like to be associated with that murder at all.
You shut off the TV.
So he tends to walk back and forth and just kind of stand guard over Dean's room. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't like to be associated with that murder at all. So I thought that was really, really interesting, which is why they don't ever talk about him on that floor, because he doesn't like that either. He'll interact with you or whatever, but he doesn't want any sort of questions or anything with regard to what happened to Dean. So he was walking back and forth at the end of the hall, watching us go in
Dean.
and out of Dean's room, which I thought was really interesting. What was your girl's opinion and thought on that piece of information from Jess?
I also thought it was kind of strange that Jess didn't want to talk about it. I was like, what's the big deal? Tell us, what are we getting ready to walk into?
Right. And when she was just saying he doesn't like the fact that his name being mentioned with Dean's murder, it just kind of just makes you wonder what could possibly happen if you are mentioning his name in connection with the murder.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, I mean, what's he gonna do? Kind of, you know what I mean?
Well,
why is she so afraid of it, you know?
Well, you know what? That was the thing too. Is like just before the tour started, and everyone's kind of still milling around. We were waiting for some more guests to show up. I was outside talking with Jess and the other guides, and I had said, I understand that you guys are, pretty protective of Lily and Dean. And Jess had said, actually, you know what? We're really protective of all of them. Like we've all worked here for years. We've developed relationships with them. Like we want to make sure that people aren't coming in here to try to harm them or scare them or anything like that. So I think that might have a little bit to do with it. Like this is not something that he wants. So they try to be respectful of that. But at the same time, Laura, what would happen if an unknowing guest on a tour happened to go in there and demand answers from Big Jim? You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, I can understand being respectful, but I'm also it almost seemed like fearful. You know what I mean? The way that you were describing the situation, I mean, maybe I'm misinterpreting it from
No. That's how it
course,
felt. That's kind of the impression that we all got. She was being real cagey about not telling us who she thought that was until we were off that fucking ward. It was weird.
Like she doesn't want to piss him off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then when she told us, I was like, well, okay, that's an interesting, because you don't hear about that. When you hear about this murder, that's not something that you hear about. And it's only something that a guide that has been working at Trans Allegheny for 7 years would know, right? So,
exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to let Donna and Connie talk about our experience with the violent women's ward.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. So it's said that in the violent women's ward, those ladies do not like ladies, any women in their ward at all, but they do like men. So we came up with an idea of we would all wait in the center area. I would sit at the doorway to the ward with the SD box, and the guys would walk in. Just the guys. All the ladies sat in the hallway behind me.
And there were only 3 guys in our group.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I could hear nothing that the ladies, sometimes I'd hear them really, really, really loud. Didn't know until I heard the audio why. But as soon as we sent the guys down, they were all hooting and hollering and telling them to stay and don't go.
Cute and ass.
And hair. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's funny.
Then they decided, let's send in some of the girls. Now, mind you, I don't know what's going on. I'm sitting on the floor. My eyes are covered and closed. I've got the headset on. They send in, was it 3 or 4?
There was, I think
3.
It was 4 of us, but we called the guys out.
Yeah.
And it was me, Jerry,
and Jen. It was
Jody,
just the 3. And Jennifer, the new guy. Yeah. That was.
There was 4 of us.
Yeah, and Jody. Oh, and Jody, yeah. There was the 4 of us.
Right. And we got about a quarter way down the hallway, and we start hearing bitch, asshole. and
Whore. Please,
Whore.
please die.
Please die.
and
Wow.
We were like,
she's hollering this out, and we're all like, and I was like, yeah, I'm the queen, bitch.
yeah, we
But
weren't intimidated
we got
at
a
all.
lot of
We then
That's
sent
crazy,
the
the
guys went
difference,
back, and I
though.
think Carrie.
yeah.
Yeah, and then they sent the guys back in. Carrie, I think you walked in to the doorway a couple of feet or so, just seeing the videos, and the dynamic changed again. It was, stay, just being nice, and then you hear me giggling on the audio. I don't know where this came from. It was so funny to me, and all I come through is ass explosion. And that's coming through a ghost box, which is a pretty long word. I was like, how did that come through all this radio static? And that's when I heard all the ladies giggling. And Carrie, too, I do have to give you another thing. There was 2 instances during our tour that I almost punched you because you scared me.
Yes.
And I was listening to the audio of that SD session last night.
Yes.
The night before. And I'm listening on my watch. I'm just clearing my head listening. And when you scared me, when I was sitting down on the floor there in front of the women's ward, and I yelled again, I scared myself again. And dang it, Carrie, you weren't here for me to punch that time. When you come up real close to me.
Yeah,
I just happened to put my head up, and there you were.
Yeah, it was. Is the auditorium on the 3rd floor? I think it is.
I think the overlook was 3rd floor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can't.
The 3rd floor is obviously the violent floor because that's where I wanted to punch you so many times.
But in her defense,
She
I
does have
was
it coming.
popping out of the
100%
ether.
will support you.
Yeah. And I was popping out of the ether at her. So at one point, the auditorium, you can only go on the stage. The actual floor of the auditorium is unstable, so nobody can go out there. So we could go on to the stage. Well, there was a door you could go in this way, and then you can come out the other door. So I had done that. And then Jess was like, all right, let's go and check it all out. So people were getting ready to leave. They were starting to walk out. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll just go out this other door. And I did. And I showed up, and Donna happened to be walking right by as I was like, boop, hi, I'm here. And she literally was like, Jesus! And put her fist. I was like, I'm so sorry. So then we're on the violent women's ward, and she's sitting there right by like the entrance to the ward. And she's sitting on the ground, eyes closed, the whole bit. She can't hear us. And I happen to walk up, and she can, I don't know if you could like feel the vibration on the floor. You could like, but again, I happened to walk up because I'm going to go onto the ward. And it scared her again. And I was like, she's going to kill me.
Right.
But it was cement.
It's a cement floor, so it wasn't like it was tile or wood or anything. So something just told me somebody's beside me. So I just turned my head and opened my eyes, and there you were.
And there I was again.
Yeah, again.
Yeah.
And I got redemption.
Right. So
I scare her all the time.
The violent women's ward was really, really interesting because Jess was like, they're going to stop talking the minute those girls go onto the floor. But they didn't. And it was really it was funny to hear Donna spitting out all these words that they were saying to us. Whore, bitch, please die, like all of this stuff. Get out, leave. And then she would just keep saying all of this stuff, and we would look at her, and she would be giggling like she couldn't believe the things she was having to call out.
Right.
And at one point, she called out Zach's dad's name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the spirits called.
And I didn't know his
I didn't either until everyone was like, Zach's dad, exactly. So she called out Zach's dad's name, Mike. And we were like, Mike, who's Mike? And that's when everyone was like, that's Zach's dad. Oh my God, holy crap. So when the guys were back on the floor, I went out there back in there. I was the only woman that went back into the ward while the 3 guys were back in there. And I went in there to really try to irritate these female spirits, which is not smart given that they were violent women spirits, but I'm dumb. So when I went in, that was when I think we were walking back out when you had called out ass explosion. I think me and the guys were leaving. But I had told his dad, I'm like, one of the spirits called you by name. And he was like, what? He got like got a little bit of alarmed, which is unsettling to know that, you know, a spirit, an entity, especially on a violent patient's ward, is calling out your name. These women loved these guys. It was almost like they were watching the Chippendales walk through there. They were so excited about these guys. The minute me and Connie and Jen and at least Jody went out there, they wanted no part of us. Go away, bitch, whore, like the whole bit. And it was funny to us, but at the same time, like, I felt there's safety in numbers. So I wasn't alone on that ward, and the rest of them were just on the other side of the threshold. And I can't imagine, Donna, what was going through your head as you're having to spit all this out, and you can't see what's going on, you can't hear us. What was running through your mind when you were having to, like, ass explosion?
Well, Jen had a couple of instances throughout the night where she had been getting scratched. Yeah. So, I didn't know which one or how many of the women had walked down there.
Yeah.
But I knew when you guys went in because of the change of the vocabulary and the dynamic completely over that ghost box. So, there's a concern, I don't foresee them pushing anybody out of windows or choking them to death without one of us stepping in. But
sure.
The scratching, the physical stuff, that's all going through my mind. And I'm sitting there going, I really hope we've got, 2 or more walking down together.
Safety in numbers.
Especially when you're talking about violent, women or men. Which when we went down the violent men's hall, I didn't fear for anything.
Yeah.
But when I was actually listening in down the violent, if I had been listening in while I was walking through the violent men's ward, I probably would have been a little more cautious.
Yeah, probably. Probably, yeah. Connie, what was your take on on the women's ward? We were having a good time. We were laughing. We thought it was funny, but
I absolutely enjoyed it, but at no time was I fearful for myself because I knew I was with a group.
Mm-hmm. Same.
And I knew that, if anything got thrown, I don't think there's anything that's ever been thrown up there, but I know there's a lot of scratching and that kind of stuff. But, I wasn't real fearful as far as any of that because I was with the group. Now, if I would have been alone, I'd have probably gotten out of there a little faster.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and the guy saw a lot of shadow figures in that ward, and it would be like shadow figures on the far end or like shadow figures peeking out of rooms and popping back in. It was really going to be anxious to see and hear what else Zach and his dad captured. To that end, I do want to say that Zach was kind enough to include me and Chris and Audra and the girls here on a post of photographs that he and his dad captured on the 3rd floor. And this looks like it's that front facade facing, where in the 2nd floor you can go out and have a cigarette or whatever. It's that 3rd floor balcony. That's what this looks like, but I could be wrong. These are two pictures that I'm going to show. They're taken right in succession. This is the first one. Again, picture roulette. Let's see if I get this right. Yes.
Okay.
So this is the doorway at the end of the hallway on the third floor. It's a photograph taken by Zach's father. As you can see, it does have a red hue to it. He took it with his phone. There is no real filter that is using, but there is that exit sign, the red exit sign at the top of the door that is creating that red light in this photograph. He's taking it in kind of a burst. The very next photo that they caught was the same door with this.
Oh, it's kind of hard to see. It looks like there's something there, but
Yeah. So if you look at the lower left section of window panes, there is, and this is a blown up picture of the door. So this was the initial photograph, and you can see that lower left section of window panes. There's, the wooden panes. The second picture, there's very definitely something in the way there. So if you're looking at it, bless you. If you're looking at it, it does, to me, look like a human figure that is facing to the left. And it looks like it might be wearing a hospital gown, because if you look at the legs of the human figure, it kind of cuts off. Like they're either hospital gown or they're wearing capris, or I'm not really sure. But so Chris and I were asking Zach, where were you? What is this red light? How far apart are these pictures taken? Tell us everything. Basically, it was taken with a camera phone. The red light is the exit sign. It's, they were taken within nanoseconds of each other. So they shot this first one, and then they shot this next one immediately like that. And then this is the only picture it's in. This is the next picture. It's in one frame, and it's there. It's not there. It's there. It's gone. So it does look like a very compelling piece of spirit photography. Laura, we talked about that in just this episode that dropped on spiritualism in the Ouija board, spirit photography. It does look like a very compelling piece of spirit photography to us. What do you girls think?
Oh, well, Mike, now that I know what his name is, after that session, showed me that picture that night while we were there.
Really?
And when he was showing and scrolling the pictures, I said, there's something there. I can see it. And I said, how quickly did you take these pictures?
Yeah.
And he said, it just snapped one right after another.
Like
I
a
said,
burst?
You definitely got something there. I can
Yeah.
see. Yeah, I said, I definitely can see a person there. There's somebody in that door.
Connie, what about you? What do you think of it?
Oh yeah, I definitely see it. There's no mistake. It don't look like there's any kind of interference from anything else. The way it's not there, it's there, and then it's not there. So there's definitely something there, at least looking, watching.
Right, exactly. It's a human shape. Laura, how about you? As the resident skeptic here on History of a Haunting, what is your thought on the picture? Do you want to see it again?
Sure. Pull it up. It definitely I can see what you're saying, it definitely looks humanoid-ish, and again, since they were taken bam, 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 it doesn't seem like if you were going to get some sort of distortion, you would think it would be contained in the other ones as well.
Right.
Since they were taken right back to back. So, yeah, it's definitely not...
It's an...
Not easily explained.
Yeah, it's an unexplainable...
it could be,
yeah.
You get weird reflections and stuff. I don't know where everybody... You know what I mean? There's so much stuff that goes into all
right,
that.
Where was everybody
itself,
else? Yeah.
Yeah, the picture itself looks pretty good.
It's pretty crazy,
I mean,
right?
Yeah, it's a very interesting picture.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was kind of it for me, Chris, and Audra. I did have to get back home because you and I did have to record an episode that day. So we left about 3:15 in the morning and we skipped out on the 4th floor. So ladies, why don't you fill me in, Lauren? What happened on the 4th floor during that part of the investigation?
So I had decided to go ahead and keep the ghost box on and the headset on
Okay.
for the whole walk upstairs through the hallways. I wanted to make sure I completely hear any of the backstory of anything that was going to take place upstairs.
Okay.
So we go ahead and head on down to the right-hand side wing. They're all talking. I was like, okay, this is going to be good. I had no idea even what these rooms are for or what could potentially be there.
Okay.
So as we're walking down, we're walking through the alcohol detox area. I find this out
that's
after
right.
and then we take into the second wing is the drug detox area.
Oh.
So I sit down in there, still have no idea what these rooms were used for. Everybody sits down, they put the REM pod out, a couple of flashlights. Now I'm closing my eyes again. I just don't want to see any of the flashlights come on. I don't want to see any lights come on to try to force myself into thinking I'm hearing something that I'm not. So we're sitting in the room. I'm hearing more of the words, it's just a dark feeling and there's not too much communication.
Okay.
But what I did hear, we were only in there for a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes.
About 6.
Probably 5 or 6 minutes. And I start hearing, leave, go, now, that way. And if it wasn't for everybody hurrying, I'm like, okay, whatever. Spirits tell us to leave all the time.
All the time.
It doesn't scare me. And if it wasn't for the rest of the group, all their feet hitting the floor, like all at once, it's like, oh, we got to go. Because I was off to the side away from everybody else. They all stayed through. And I just happened to pick up my head and I'm like, oh, gee, thanks for telling me we're leaving. Jess was like, oh no, as soon as I heard them tell me to leave, we're out. We're not staying here. What had happened shortly before I started getting any of those communications is Connie says, we could hear it in the audio prior to her saying, it's getting really heavy in here. And as soon as she says that, that's when this spirit or entity is telling us to leave.
Wow.
Go that way. And so I find out after leaving that, I said, okay, Jess, I need to know what that was all about.
Yeah.
I'm walking in there blind and deaf.
Yeah.
And everybody was in a scurry to hurry up and leave. She wouldn't even walk down the hallway to put the REM pod down. She made Mike take it down. So I thought, there's definitely something in there.
Yeah.
So the story is what they have found is it's really not a person or a regular spirit. It's more of a
creeper demon.
A creeper and more of a demon, almost like a
me and Laura immediately were like
yeah. And it makes sense since it's a detox area, something that somebody would be detoxing off of drugs would see. This would crawl up the ceiling, walls. So immediately when I got out of that room, I said, I need to know what was just around us.
Man.
And we didn't see anything, but Jess had made it really clear that was her least favorite ward to be on. And at one time, she literally scooted back into me. We were on that floor 6.5 minutes because I got video.
Okay.
And we didn't see anything. We had grid lights up. We had the REM pod. We did get a little bit of the REM pod reaction, but nothing real outstanding other than just the feelings and an occasional word from Donna And Jess had scooted back almost onto my lap, and we were whispering and laughing about how she would be in our laps before we left that ward.
Oh my God.
And then all of a sudden, it just got real heavy behind me. And I was like, I said, it don't feel right. It's real heavy. And Donna said, go. And we were like, yep, gone, grabbed our stuff, and we were up and out.
Yeah. Yeah, I had asked her when we were messaging on Messenger, I had asked Donna, I was like, so, how was the fourth floor? Like, because we had all three left. And so after she was kind of telling me about this creature and the words that she was getting, I texted Chris and Audra, and I was like, we left too soon. We just left way too soon. Yeah. So,
So it's used to go back, and this time I'll go.
You know what? I'm
so bummed I had to miss it.
I thought of
really
you the
wanna
whole
go.
time.
We'll have so much.
Yes. So, before we get into your investigation, because they've already done an investigation of the back buildings, which, like, again, are medical, geriatric, and forensics. Donna, why don't you tell everybody how we met that night?
Well, I guess the best is to start off from the beginning, just so that everybody doesn't think that I'm some kind of stalker creeper.
Which I was kind of bummed out to find out what she wasn't. But anyway,
Damn it!
Finish the story.
We go to check into our hotel. While we're checking in, there's two ladies sitting in the lobby behind us waiting for their dinner to be delivered. And they get to talking to Connie. They're like, oh, what are you here for? And she's like, oh, we're here, to go investigate at Trans Allegheny. And they're like, oh, so are we. That happen to be Jody and Lisa. So they go and get their food. We go upstairs, get our bags ready, come back downstairs. We're putting things in the back of our car. Here comes this car pulling right next to us from North Carolina as well. And I said, oh, we're neighbors. Connie, she'll talk to anybody. She doesn't care if it is a creeper, a raper, or whatever. She's going to talk to her. She is. She's bad about that. And so we got to talking to Chris and Audra, and they're like, well, why are you guys here from North Carolina? We're like, we're going to Trans Allegheny. And so they told us about their investigation group, and we were talking about ours. So we instantly on Facebook liking each other's groups. Well, you weren't there, Carrie. You weren't at the hotel with them. Mm-hmm. So we load up. We go ahead and head over. We're there super early. So I'm going through Southern Entity's Facebook page. I'm like, let's see what they're all about, And they did a live video of Chris, Audra, and Carrie was in it. And I had just turned to Connie and I said, I think she's right down there. I saw her walking around the building. So when she come walking down on our side of the parking lot, and I said, hey, weren't you just on Facebook? And she's just stopped. And she's like, you're friends with Chris and Audra. And she's giving me this look like, what are you going to do to me?
How the hell did you know
I kind of took a step back and I'm like, because I had just done a Facebook Live for the podcast. So I'm like, is she talking about Southern Entities? Is she talking about the podcast? Is this a listener? Should I hug them?
Right. Should I run?
Should I run? Like, what is happening? Yeah. She was like, oh, I know Chris and Audra.
You had also seen an apparition in the window, too.
I had just come around I was taking pictures of the building, and I had just come around, and I had seen an apparition of a young girl in one of the first floor windows. And the crazy thing about it was this particular room was part of the main lobby. So again, here is the main, picture roulette. It was off of this corridor. And these doors are locked. Like, you can't just go into these rooms. So I have no idea who that was, but when I blinked again, she was gone. Young girl, shoulder length brown hair, had a collared, I don't know if it was a dress, I don't know if it was a hospital gown, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, so I had just texted Chris and Audra in all caps, I just saw my first fucking apparition. Where are you guys? And then I'm walking back to my car because I'm going to have a cigarette, and I'm walking back to my car. And she's like, weren't you just on Facebook? And I was like, what's happening?
Right. Yes.
This place is insane. Oh my God.
This house definitely had a plan for our group. It knew that all of us needed to get together. They separate us out into 4 groups, and for us to meet Lisa and Jody and Chris and Audra and Carrie right beforehand, just organically, and for them to put us into groups together.
Yeah.
Which, a little funny story, Jody and Lisa weren't supposed to be in our group.
Oh, really?
Somehow it worked out. Yeah.
Oh,
You didn't know. So
they
the
hijacked.
3 of you, yeah. Oh, and Zach and his dad as well, which we're friends with. We work together with Paranormal as well. We're trying to get a group together to go investigate here locally.
Yay.
But those 2 snuck into our group. We're all supposed to be groups of 10. Somehow 2 other people that were supposed to be in group 1 disappeared. And Lisa and Jody were able to secretly slide
Really?
into our group.
Yeah.
And Jess had no idea. She knew how many people she was supposed to have. She counted us every time we went up and down the floors. She had the number she was supposed to have, never questioned it.
Why would she? Yeah,
I know.
That seems
That
like
house
made perfect
definitely had a
sense.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
wonderful.
funny.
You know what? That's really, really wonderful because it was a really cohesive group. We all got along really, really well. We all worked really, really well together. Nobody was, you know how sometimes you can meet people on tours and stuff like this, and you find a set of people that are just kind of trying to take over the entire investigation, and they don't want to have anybody like do their part or bring their skills or whatever into an investigation. And none of us were like that. And it was just like we had all been investigating for the longest time. And in a location such as Trans Allegheny, which I wouldn't recommend Trans Allegheny to be anybody's very first paranormal investigation. Maybe get a couple of investigations under your belt first, because this place, you guys, it's no fucking joke. This place is no joke. It is literally everything it is touted to be. Whether it be on our podcast, whether it be on Ghost Hunters, Destination Fear, Ghost Adventures, whether it's on an online article that you read, this place is absolutely everything it claims to be. And we are definitely planning a private investigation of it. Especially now that we have, paranormal buddies here on the East Coast, we can do this. Paranormal investigations of locations like this are very expensive, so you do need a fairly good sized group of people to be able to afford it. But you can do a private paranormal investigation of these locations. And we are planning to do that. Now, you girls have already investigated the back buildings. How did that go? Was it another 8 to or 9 to 5:30 overnight?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about that, like the best parts of it.
So it was a lot different, I guess, because it's not such a huge area to cover. They would walk you basically to the entrance of each building and tell you what took place there. Nothing really specific, like the bedpost murder room or Lily's room.
Sure.
Just tell you the history of the building itself.
Okay.
If you wanted them to, they would walk in with you and investigate with you if you'd like, or you can just basically free reign wherever you want. You had free access to all buildings. If you wanted to go to one building for 30 minutes and jump over to another one, you could.
Okay.
There was not a time access,
Okay.
like the main house. Um, so not too much activity, but this is Connie and that was Connie and I's like big investigation, like for her and I.
Yeah.
Brand new equipment. That this is the biggest thing we had done.
That's so great.
Um, we did ask one of the guides. We had gone up into the medical building to the attic space.
Oh.
Now I'll be honest. We walked up in there. We walked about 10 to 15 feet. I'm like, let's just talk to him here instead of going further down into the basement. I was like, I don't know if I want to walk any further.
Wow.
Just got an odd feeling. But then we had asked one of the tour guides to go up there with us. And two of the tour guides end up coming with a friend of theirs that kind of hangs around and has a lot of experience working with them and a couple of other guests. We've got a lot of audio. A lot came through the ghost box. I had one that was grabbing my shoulder. I could literally feel his thumb on the back side of my shoulder and him pushing down on my shoulder.
Oh my
And I
God.
was sitting on the floor. And I looked over at Connie, who was standing up. And I said, are you touching me? And after I said that to her, I said, there's no way. It is definitely a left hand that's on my shoulder. I can feel the thumb
Wow.
placement. So there was a little activity there upstairs, and it got pretty interesting. The one guy did get scratched. We noticed it when we got back downstairs and saw the back side of his neck. But the main house floor, just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Even during the daytime tours, they have a daytime paranormal tour where they just walk you through, where we did get to go through the criminally insane
Yes.
intake and the lobotomy recovery area. And that's really where I wanted to go because, especially in medical settings, I can feel the heaviness. Like I get more interaction with myself. I can tell when something's near. But in the criminally insane intake area is where I had gotten my hair pulled. I could literally feel it just gradually pulling. And I was like, you're not pulling out my hair. I thought it was her. So I just stood still, and then I heard pop, and I turned real quick, and she's 15, 20 feet away. And she's not a young buck. She's not going that fast. And I said, did you see my hair? And she's like, no. But yeah, that area that we weren't able to investigate this last time is the area that I would really love to get back into, because I had a bunch of just activity, even during the daytime. And I hope that if we ever get to do that private investigation, we can do that area there.
Yeah, I sure hope so too. The cool thing about Trans Allegheny is they stopped giving tours in November, but the paranormal investigations go all year round. So,
Right.
yeah, when the tour guide manager she'd opened up the gift shop for us, and I was asking, and she's like, oh no, she's like, the paranormal investigations are year round. We do it all year round, but like the daytime paranormal tours, those stop in November after the big Halloween event. So I was like, good to know. I mean, I'm not looking to like drive to anywhere in West Virginia and through the Blue Ridge Mountains when it's snowing. I'm from Arizona. I don't know how to fucking drive in the snow. But maybe we can do something in like March, and maybe it won't be too bad. We've got a fantastic group of folks that want to do it with us. So if we could have that place to ourselves.
That would be sweet.
Oh, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, that would be really, really amazing. So, Laura, what do you think? That was Trans Allegheny. I mean, I wished you were there the entire night. I'm like, I can't believe Laura's missing this. But, so what do you think?
Kids, man. Kids. They're all picky about you being
home and take them to school. Yeah.
They won't let me to take them to the insane asylums. It's so unfair.
It's so unfair. They're
My
driving
son would
you
actually
into
probably
one.
love it. He'd be so
Zane.
into it. He'd be like just running around all crazy. That's
Laura
very
has
fun.
an 8-year-old son.
Right. Yeah. So
Well, interesting fact, Laura. Back in its heyday, for any asylum really, a husband who wanted to get rid of his wife for whatever reason, maybe found another lover, whatever, he could drop her off there for whatever reason. Maybe she rode a
Exactly.
horse or didn't sweep the floor well enough. He got
Mm-hmm.
$10 for her, and if she went, the children had to go as well. So he got rid of the wife and children, got paid $10 a head.
Wow.
Right?
So
Yeah, I did
my
know that
husband
they could commit them for
figured
like
out how to do that.
PMS or any, basically any reason that they felt
Yeah.
they wanted to. I didn't know they're getting bounties on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's
this
pretty crazy. But yeah,
would pay.
that's nuts. So,
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely
yeah, I think this
ridiculous.
place is so good as far as places to go and investigate. And then you guys telling your experience from this last time.
It was.
Sounds awesome. I'm definitely making it a point. So if you guys, if we go back and do a private one, I will
We
ship
absolutely
him
will.
to an asylum and then come. No.
Known as my
But yeah,
dad's.
unfortunately, it makes it work, but right. Plus, I
My
have to
daughter,
talk about
who's a
countries,
skeptic,
so-
she's even said that she would love to go with us on one.
That's what I'm saying. I love to bring Laura
Yeah.
on investigations because I'm not trying to convince her, but she also keeps me on my toes, right? Because she's a skeptic. So it's like, okay, well, I'm not trying to convince Laura, but I'm also, like these pictures, like, okay, that Zach took and the experiences
and I
that
don't
we've had.
naysay
Yeah.
everything just because
Right.
I'm a skeptic. So I mean, there's stuff that you just can't explain. There's stuff that's happened to me that with Carrie that we can't explain. I just think, in general, a lot of times, there might be an explanation for it. So if there is, I want to figure out what that is, so that when it really is something that can't be explained, we've looked at every other option of what it could be, so that it's more legitimate. I think that's what every paranormal investigator does. So I think in one way, you guys are all skeptics. You're always trying to, if you're good, you're trying to disprove what it is, and as opposed to
Right.
prove that it's a ghost or something paranormal. So
Yeah.
that's part of the reason I enjoy the investigation so much. So regardless if I think something's really truly haunted or not, like, we're out there looking at it, and I always go in with an open mind. So, and it's hard not to go through to some of these places and not, if you didn't have an open mind, you're probably going to leave with one. So
That's all we're asking, Laura. That's all we're asking.
yeah, but that's all I do. But yeah, this place, man, seems like it would be just mind blowing. So I'm all in. I think it's great, and I think it's great that you guys all got to go. And
Yeah.
I know Carrie was looking forward to this for a long time.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest heavy hitters in the States for sure.
1,000%. I think it might be actually kind of great for all of us to do Waverly Hills together next year.
That would be awesome.
Waverly Hills actually offers you overnight accommodations too. So I think, let's,
I definitely want.
right? Yeah.
Oh, great.
You can spend the night in their pump house. You have access to showers. We just have to bring sleeping bags and stuff like that. But,
Love camping.
yeah, camping at a tuberculosis hospital.
Sounds so fun.
Right? Who wants to spend the night in the body shoot? Yeah, so I think
I'm not doing that, but
this entire place, in just the size and the scope and the volume of activity that we have had, plus the wonderful and amazing folks that we met there, this night it just can't be. This is where the bar is now. So every location after this, it's gotta exceed Trans Allegheny's bar that they've set, because we are so thrilled to meet you guys, Zach and his dad, Jody and Lee. We had the best time. We want to stay in touch with all of you. We want to go on more investigations with all of you. I love that you guys are here in North Carolina. we can be doing all of this together. So yeah, I think Trans
That's always
Allegheny,
nice.
yeah, it definitely delivered. It is absolutely everything it promises to be, in my opinion. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So, do you guys, for your paranormal group, do you guys have a website? Where on social media can folks find you? Tell us everything.
So we're on Facebook. We're kind of two old ladies. We're trying to figure out this technology thing, obviously, because I can't figure out my camera or my audio watch. We're spirits of the southeast. Like I said, we're just getting started. I do goof around a little bit on TikTok. Same name, Spirits of the Southeast.
Okay.
Just trying to get the word out there, trying to get some interest. Just really want to try to get rid of the taboo of this whole spirit world. Like, if somebody is
agree.
interested in it and wants to learn more about it, all they have to do is ask questions and not think that they're weird for asking it. You know, 'cause
Right.
that's kind of where we were for so long. You know,
Yeah.
but we're more than happy to help anybody out. And if we don't know the answers to any questions that somebody, because we're just starting out, we're
Right.
basically self learners. If we don't know the answers, we got people like you that we can reach out to get the answers that we don't know.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much. And I do the same thing because Chris has been investigating for like 30 years and Audra for, I don't know, like 10 or 15. And I've been doing it for like 2 years. So they've taught me so much, but there is still some stuff that I'm like, well, Chris, what do you think of this picture? Like, I mean, I don't have enough experience with spirit photography or orbs, stuff that like I'm like, I don't think that's an orb, it looks like it's dust. And Chris is like, no, it is, you can tell by, because it looks like it's fluid in the center, like it doesn't look like a dust particle. Like, there's so much to evidence review that it just blows my mind. So yeah, it's definitely a community, and I think the more people that ask questions and want to know and that are encouraged by folks like us that are also just starting out and, hey, yeah, come on, you can ask us. If we don't know the answer, we'll find somebody who does. I think that will help break that taboo. So I love what you're doing. What are some of the places you guys have coming up that you're going to be investigating? I know you got a couple, or one or two on the books, right?
We got Benton Hall in Wilkesboro, North Carolina.
Ah, very cool.
And Trivet Clinic, we haven't settled on a date. You know, very local places.
Okay.
In between, both of us work for the same company. Pretty stressful, high, and running on our toes all the time type of work.
Okay.
So we'll probably be keeping people here for the next couple of months. But definitely want to go back to Savannah, and I've got to get to New Orleans for sure.
Yes, and I'm so glad
Awesome.
that it didn't get blown off the map by Hurricane Ida. New Orleans is definitely on our bucket list as well. So, all right, guys. Well, like they said, you can find them on Facebook and TikTok. Have any questions, certainly reach out to them. And same with us. You can find us, I don't have the overlays on this mini episode, but on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the TikTok, all at HOAH Podcast. Laura and I do have personal TikTok pages that you can follow us on. That's the only social media platform that we do. And I think that is it. Laura, do you have any questions about Trans Allegheny, anything like that?
No, I'm just containing my jealousy. It's fine.
Okay, that's
good.
good. Now I'm
Just
happy.
biding my time till I can get there now.
As always, guys, Patreons at the $5 and up level will get access to all of the evidence that we captured at Trans Allegheny. Patreon.com/HOAH podcast. And as we always say here, everybody please be safe out there, because you never know who
Or what?
is listening. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. We had the best time with you. Thank you for filling in the gaps of the fourth floor and telling us everything that went on there. We certainly hope you enjoyed being on the show, and we would love to have you back in the future if you'd like to come on. What do you think?
Oh,
Come back and tell us
absolutely.
about your.
We had a blast.
Great. Wonderful. Yeah, we definitely want to hear about your future investigations. And when we do investigations of places together again. Hopefully Laura will be with us on those, though.
Yay.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I think that's it. I don't have anything else. Bye.
Bye.